Thank you very much for watching my bikepacking film. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I bring out a bikepacking adventure film just like this every single month, so if you subscribe, you'll be sure that you don't miss out on any of my future adventures. And next month, I've got an absolutely epic bikepacking adventure film coming out. It's been in the works for many months now, and I know a lot of people have been waiting for it. So if you haven't subscribed, now certainly is a good time to do that. So let's dive into the route a little bit. It wasn't very complicated and it wasn't a very long route either. It was just a weekend trip. It was an overnighter and I was planning on packing in as much as I possibly could into this trip. Although it was short, I wanted it to be a good one. So I normally, as you'll know if you watch this channel for a long period of time, I normally get the train to my destination. But in this case, I actually drove. It was just a bit easier. There's all kinds of things going on with the trains, as you might have seen in some other films this year. A lot of train strikes going on. So I just wanted to get there. And I don't live that far away from the Lake District either. So I drove to Windermere and I parked at the Beach Hill car park, which is a couple of miles south of Windermere. Reasonably priced, and you can leave your car there for a long period of time, up to a week as well, which is great if you're planning on doing longer adventures. As a bit of a top tip there for you. So I set up the bike and I cycled back into Windermere, and that's where I was going to start my route. The first bit of this route is taking the ferry across the lake. Now you can go around the lake, but it adds a lot of mileage. It's quite busy around there as well on the roads, so I'd recommend getting the ferry if you can. It's £2 to go across, so it's very cheap and it does save you a lot of cycling. Now, I've actually got this ferry before, and it was last summer when I did another trip in the Lake District. I didn't take the Packraft with me, but it was a fantastic trip. So if you'd like to watch that video, just click that link up there and you can watch that now. So the route that I'd planned took in quite a lot of bridle ways, and mostly off-road was the plan, down to Coniston Water, and it is very hard terrain around there. Anyone who's been to the Lake District knows it's very hilly, and the terrain tends to be quite tough. So I was quite heavily laden, and unfortunately I had done quite a bit of faffing that day, so by the time I actually got started, it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now I did this film in October, towards the end of October, and as a result of that, it did get dark quite quickly. So I ended up following the route as much as I possibly could. Some of it I'd planned obviously in haste, and I ended up going up some long stairs, which was knackering, as you'll have seen. So I did quite a bit of hike bike, but some of the bridle paths around there are fantastic, really good for mountain biking. Not too rough, to be honest, but tough terrain, as you'd expect. But because of the sun setting, and I knew I had to get the boat out to the island, I ended up skipping some of that annoyingly and ended up having to join the road because it was just quicker. I wasn't sure on how tough the terrain was going to be, and I didn't want to start sailing across Coniston Water in the dark. So that's why I ended up skipping some of that. So when I made it down to Coniston, I actually did have quite a bit of time, thankfully. I'd pushed it pretty hard. The weather had stayed in my favour and there was still some light left in the sky. And that's when I set up the Packraft. The plan was to sail out, or paddle out, should I say, to Wildcat Island, or Peel Island as it's called officially. The reason it's called Wildcat Island is it stems from a very popular book called Swallows and Amazons, which is a little bit old now. Not many people read it, sort of my age group, but I know a lot of people grew up with that book at school. Basically, the whole premise is going on epic adventures, sailing out towards the islands. It's a fantastic story. So I kind of wanted to replicate that a little bit. And so I decided to set sail out towards that island. The island itself is actually quite big, and it is almost as if it's described in the book. It really does feel like you've stumbled across a strange wilderness. There's cliff edges that kind of stick out, so you've almost got a jetty that you can paddle up to. And it's quite secluded. It is quite popular with people wild camping, canoeists and people like me, kayakers and things. So be prepared if you do go out there. But when I got there was only one other person on the island, and it is quite big. And they were sort of at the other side where I was going. So it did feel really remote, and it was quite an exciting adventure getting across there. So like I said at the beginning, this is the first time I've actually used the Packraft on a proper adventure. I've got some straps from Sea to Summit that I bought that were really good. They kept the bike tied down really securely. There isn't much that you need to do to set up the bike to get it on the Packraft. All you need to do is take the wheels off and then turn the handlebars. You don't need to take anything else off. Your luggage you stick on top of the bike. My Packraft actually has a separate compartment that I can put things inside the boat, but I was in a bit of a rush and I just decided to stick the stuff on top of the bike. So all you need to do is take the wheels off, like I say, and you can strap it down. So it is very straightforward. One great thing about this charge cooker, it's quite an old bike now. It has quick release mountain bike wheels, so I can quickly release the wheel, obviously, and stick it on top of the bike. Nowadays, most mountain bikes will come with a through axle, which is a little bit more of a faff to take off, but still pretty quick. But the quick release is just super simple. Drop the lever, take the wheel out, stick it on the bike. Super simple. I wanted to have a bit of fun. As you know, if you've watched this channel for a long time, I am a bit of a big kid. So I bought that pirate flag off Amazon for a few quid and strapped it to my GoPro 360 mount. So it ended up being this massive flag on top of the boat, and I thought it looked cool. And I did get a few strange looks, to be honest, from people passing by, but that's the way it goes. Yeah, so it was good fun. I did a bit of light camping cooking as well, as you saw, so I brought some beef with me from the Windermere co-op, and I also brought a couple of vegetables from my house, and basically just set up a quick beef casserole on the island, just for something to warm me up. Because it was absolutely freezing and the weather was appalling on the second day, as you'll have seen. The forecast was for torrential rain all afternoon and evening that day, but I didn't get it, fortunately. So I did want something to warm me up just in case that was going to happen. So I woke up in the morning to a dry ground, dry tent. Was thankful of that, so I was able to do a bit of filming. But as I got back onto the mainland from Wildcat Island, it absolutely chucked it down, and you can probably tell from the amount of filming I did that day. I only did a few flyby shots because it was so appallingly wet. By the time I got my camera out, it was absolutely drenched. The microphone was soaked. I had to put a special lens cover on to stop it from getting splashes all over the lens, and it was just miserable. So I got pretty cold that day, and I ended up just wanting to get back to the car as quickly as I could. So all in all, it was a fantastic adventure. I had a great time testing out the Packraft, and I will definitely be doing that again in the future. I've got a couple of exciting bike rafting trips actually planned for 2023, so stay tuned for those. They're going to be good ones. And before I go, remember, if you want to check out the gear that I use or a bit more about me, there's a link to my website in the description. You can follow me on Instagram and Strava on there as well. Thank you ever so much for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next video.